15 years ago or something where I hit rock bottom, right? Everything looked good on the outside, but my inside was not in alignment with where I was. Right? I had all this stuff going on in my head. I was just not in a great place.
Welcome to the Troy Kearns Podcast. We talk all things real estate, business, entrepreneurship. Today, I've got a very special guest, the CEO of Hero Nation Coaching, Wayne. I'm going to screw up your last name. How do I pronounce it, Wayne?
Hey, that's good. Everybody does. Salmans. There you go.
Salmans. Wayne, welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you for having me on here.
So tell me a little bit about Hero Nation Coaching and your company and who you are and how you got started, Wayne.
Man, I'll give you the brief background. I was in real estate for years and did fairly well at that. Was a 30 under 30 for Realtor Magazine and all that good stuff. And that led into coaching for Keller Williams for many years and doing their Bold program all over the country, which was amazing. And got tired of being on the road 24/7. So left and followed really what I wanted to do, which is what we're doing now. One-on-one coaching and helping people get where they want to go faster with fewer bruises.
So you had a background in real estate, and you worked with Keller Williams. Keller Williams is notorious for having an excellent culture.
Yes.
So is that kind of reign true with where you're at today? Is that something that you kind of try to focus on? I know that you focus on empowerment and other things like that.
Yeah. So I think a big thing for us, when let me say it a different way, when somebody reads my bio, it sounds really nice because it leaves out all the other stuff. But it was 15 years ago or something where I hit rock bottom. Right, everything looked good on the outside, and kind of one of those things where everything looked good on the outside. Had the married the 3.2 kids and everything looked great, but my inside was not in alignment with where I was. Right? I had all this stuff going on in my head. I was just not in a great place. Right. Limiting beliefs, everything else. And I literally nailed rock bottom. So I had an affair, screwed up my life, lost my business, nailed rock bottom to the point where I was getting ready to take my life. And in that moment, I remember, I was in Alaska laying on this floor, getting ready to take my life. And what hit me was, it hit me like nobody was coming to save me. And it wasn't like I was waiting for a savior or something. It was just like, nobody was coming. Like I just had like this clear moment of like, you better like step up. You can either step up for yourself and be the person you need, or you can check out. And It led me on this journey of like, maybe I can make it one more day. Maybe I can step up for me. Maybe it'll get better. And it just led me to help, my mission, which is to help people become their own hero, which is like, and by you being your own hero, you'll empower other people to do the same. So really it went to, if I can help me get back up, if I can help kind of figure this out, I'm going to spend, a lot of my life helping other people figure out, and have the tools and the mindset and the skill set to be able to, live the life they want to live. So that's kind of what led us on this journey. And Keller Williams is amazing at their training and things. And yet I got to a point where I realized that there was a lot of like one size fits all out there kind of coaching. And that just didn't resonate with me. Like there's some good stuff out there, just didn't resonate. I was like, man, the guy with no kids is doing his business different than somebody else who's a single mom with 3 kids, whatever. It's like there's just not a one size fits all. And it led me like, I want to have a coaching company where we meet people where they are and then help them build like a custom path to where they want to go, not just where like we're kind of told we should go or based on somebody else's methodology.
Wayne, I really appreciate you sharing your journey up front. I have a lot of questions regarding that because I think I don't want to gloss over that, man. That is that is something that I think a lot of people struggle with, no matter how successful that they are, that they're generally not happy. And, to be in a place that you are contemplating suicide, I've listened to people who have jumped off the Golden Gate Bridge and survived before, and they say, what's their last thought? And the thought is, oh shit, why am I doing this? And so the fact that you didn't take that the undoable thing, and you've changed it all around is awesome. My question to you is, why did you feel like you needed to do that? And how do you reach other people who feel like they're in a desperate situation?
Yeah. No, I love that question. And, one of the most interesting things to me looking back was, I think prior to that experience, I think I probably would have thought like suicide or whatever else is probably like I would have seen this kind of a selfish decision. Why would somebody do that? You know what I mean? And yet in that moment, I truly believed that everybody else would be better off if I checked out. I really thought my kids would be better off without me. I really thought the world would just be a better place if I screwed up so much. Like it's better if I just get out of the way. You know what I mean? And now, I know that that's not true, right? And yet in that moment, I truly did believe that. And I think that it was, and I've come to realize a couple of things that helped now, but I was really ill-equipped. I wasn't asking the right questions. I was in a mindset. I thought that I was a screw up, not that I just had some screw ups, Right. It's like, I love that Eric Thomas, quote where he says, failure is a bruise, not a tattoo. But I was treated like it was a tattoo. And I was like, all those labels we put on ourselves, like I'm a failure, I'm a this. And it was tough. And I think the other thing too for me was I had really a lot of my identity was wrapped up in how I looked and the success and the money, whatever else, right? And when all that kind of went away, it was like there was nothing left, right? Because that's how I identified. So it's like now, like I want to have the stuff, but I don't want the stuff to have me. And so a lot of I think what we do is help people with identity and go like, yeah, the money like that's all phenomenal, but that's not like necessarily who you are. And right. Then helping with some of that identity piece.
Yeah, that's a very compelling story. I haven't ever talked to somebody who shared something like that with me, and so I really appreciate you doing that because I know that as somebody who struggled with alcoholism early in my career, I have felt that desperate situation where you're like, man, you're just beholden to something. And that was my rock bottom when I was addicted to alcohol. And I remember, praying to God, just like, man, just get me through tonight, man. I freaking just get me off this sauce and let me move on, man. And since I quit booze, it's been like a completely different situation. But I understand, like when you're serving a couple different masters and you're really not serving yourself anymore, how much your life can really change and you can really turn it all around. And that, I think that's the message here that I want to think is that like now you've come from a low to now you're at a place where you can empathize with other people about where they're at and get their identity back in check. Because I also, I told people for years, like, man, I so much identified as a realtor that I realized that I'm actually an investor at this point in time. I just got rid of my license so that I didn't have that same identity. Yeah. So tell me just one more thing, like with the whole affair thing and this situation, like, do you believe that was like some sort of self-sabotage or were you just unhappy in your marriage or what was going on there?
It's interesting you say that because it 100% was. And, when I go real deep into it and I look back on, what I realized is I had a lot of beliefs, right? Like some internal beliefs, like if people really got to know me, they won't love me, right? Some internal beliefs of like, I'm not good enough and things like that. So some of those internal things. So looking back is like, and I also didn't believe in divorce at the time, which was interesting. So like I screwed it up so bad that person had to leave. Does that make sense? Right. It's like, make it like a self-fulfilling prophecy. Right. So you're 100% on with that. Like looking back, it makes sense, but in the moment it didn't necessarily make sense. I think something else you said is really important, that so many of us have struggled with this on one level or not. We don't talk about it very often. Right. So many of us have thought like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to, get back up, or I don't know what. And like it does get better if you keep going, but it's we all, most entrepreneurs, and I remember Zig Ziglar said this one time. He goes, when you're speaking to a room, there's at least one person in that room that's thinking about throwing in the towel. Yeah. And it's like, we're all going through struggles, right. And but it's tough. We feel really alone most of the time.
Yeah. And, something, I'm always I'm a big self-improvement guy. And so I think that, one of the books that I heard that I listened to, I really agree with what the author, his name is Joe Dispenza. And the book is called Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself. And it really identified to me from a logical standpoint of like, why am I continuing to make the same mistakes in some of the areas that I need to improve in my life? And it's like, because rather than playing the tape forward about like what we're going to do tomorrow. We tend to play what we did yesterday. Yeah. And we have this internal tape that rolls through our head about like all these bad decisions that we've made, all these. Yeah. And the reality is nobody else might see us that way. They might see us as the complete opposite, but we're so hard on ourselves that we can be self-destructive, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I love the frame that I get a lot of my clients, which is begin to treat yourself like your best friend. So what's the conversation your best friend would have with you about this, right? So let's say you screwed up something, right? Your best friend would probably be like, yeah, dude, like you screwed it up and not the end of the world. And what are we going to do next time? Right. It's like your best friend, like they wouldn't necessarily give you a pass, but they also wouldn't just like put you in like the judger pit forever. Right. It's like, yeah, you screwed up, dude. Right. And here's what we learned. What we realized. So like we can begin to have like that kind of conversation with ourselves. I think it's huge. And, most of us are living we're living in a reflection of how we see ourselves. Right. But most of us are that picture we have in our mind of ourselves is 3 to 5 years outdated. So we're living in accordance with like this old version of ourselves. So like you said, it becomes a self-perpetuating thing. So much of this is why we dive into like mindset, skill set, and tool set. So it's like, yeah, we got to get the mind right in a sense, but we also can give somebody like the right tools and then teach them how to use the tools to be able to make those changes. So kind of like the combination of those three can be really, really powerful.
So how long ago did you start Hero Nation coaching?
So we started about 6 years ago. Yeah.
So the name Hero, I'm sure it has meaning to you.
Yeah.
Why did you come up with that name?
And it really came from, when I did a lot of reflection on that, on the moments that I've been through, which was, I think everybody's got to be their own hero, right? Meaning like you got to learn how to take care of yourself, because it's kind of like being on the airplane, right? You got to put your mask on first. So the whole mentality is like, being your own hero. If we can help you become your own hero, then you'll be able to go out and help inspire and empower other people to become their own hero. And I think a big part of that is like, I'm not coming to save any of my clients, right? But I'm going to help equip them and give them questions, things like that to help them, be the hero they need.
Copy. That's great. I like that a lot. Wayne, when you guys focus on coaching people, how do people find you and hear about you, and why do they hire you?
Man, they find and hear about from all over the place, good, bad, or indifferent, right? I had one of my coaching clients the other day goes, man, I hate you. You're right. I love you. I'll talk to you next week. Right. So like, you never know what the word on the street is. You know what I mean? I was like, I think that was a great review. But a lot of it comes from speaking and things like that. But I think that what really resonates with people and the difference, I think, in like what we do, there's a lot of others do, is like just, there's so much like transactional coaching out there and so much coaching in the box. And there's a time and a place for that, I think. But so many people come like, I'm so glad like you actually know who I am and what I'm about and what we're doing. Like, we're having real conversations, not, your client 4327, here's the generic 5 questions for the week. And, really a lot of times it's breaking down, is that really what you want? And really pushing them to have those real conversations to figure out what are we actually after? Because I think there's too many people that, build the quote unquote success ladder up against the wrong wall, right? So they get to the top and they're like, shoot, this isn't actually what I wanted. So It's breaking down some of that or going back and helping them get where, what is their version of radical, unapologetic success? Like, what do they actually want at the end of the day?
And are your teachings based on your experience from building yourself back up?
Man, I think that the teachings are, I think based on there's nothing new in some ways, and I think a lot of it is timeless. You know what I mean? Whether it's goal setting, I think it's all the stuff brought in, and it's a big tool bag to figure out what's right for that person. So it's not one rigid thing. But I think that the real, if I was going to go down to the essence of it is, I want my clients to be able to put their head on the pillow every night and go like, I'm proud of like who I am and what I did today. Like, I'm proud of who I am, what I did, where I'm going. And that's a big piece of that.
Are you almost like a psychologist?
We get paid more than psychologists most of the time, which I think is good. No, I think people come for business coaching, but like it all touches. What I mean? Like you can't have this thing falling off the wheels and pretend everything's okay over here, right? So it all touches for sure.
So it's a mindset balanced with a personal happiness of like, if in order to create the better version of you, you need to focus on being the best version of you internally first, and then everything else is going to have that exact effect. And we were just talking about this with someone else. It's like a young man who was 23 said such a profound thing to me. And for such a young guy, he's a smart guy. His name's Luke Lentz. He's on my podcast. And he said, I found that when I didn't take care of myself, everything else suffered. Like when I didn't exercise, when I didn't do this, when I didn't do that, like I didn't feel good. My business didn't go right, and this and that and the other thing. And it sounds like a very simple concept, but it's very powerful at the same point in time.
Yeah, it really is. Yeah.
So people find you and they hire you, and what is the pain point for them, Wayne, when they find you and they hire you?
Yeah, I think the most, I believe that every person is nobody should work as hard as you work without having a clear custom plan to get where you want to go. And a lot of times people come to us because their life is good, but something's missing. Or a lot of times people come to us when, they're hitting some sort of wall. It's like they've had the same year for the last 3 years and they're looking like I break through that. It's like life is good, but like I just know there's a gear that I'm not tapping into. Or they're ready to, kind of recreate themselves or do something along those lines. A lot of times people, though, they feel like they're not making maybe the impact that they want to be making. And they're like, what's in the way? Why am I not? What's the gear that I want to dive into to be able to do that?
And so you'll sit with someone and I guess do almost an intake.
Yep. We go deep, like right now, like what's working, what's not working. We talk about, and that's the most fun part. I tell people that's when we first started working together, it's a little like we're on a scavenger hunt. We don't know exactly what we're supposed to find. So, it's just a long conversation, like what's working, what's not working. And we go through, a bunch of areas of their life. Sometimes they're really clear on like, hey, I got to double my numbers in the next 6 months. Cool. Like we just jump into that. Usually it's a little bit of a discovery to figure out what the most important thing is for us to tackle first and go into that. Right now with a lot of people, it's retention. It's keeping their teams motivated. Right. It's where do I find more business? It's how do I control cash flow? But like you're saying too, it's also like, bro, you're running on nothing. Like there's nothing to take. Like what do you need for you? Do you need to take a day and go for a walk? Do you need, like, what is it? What is that? So it's definitely multidimensional because you see it right now. And a lot of people are trying to kind of white knuckle through, this thing. And it's like, man, it's a marathon. We got to figure out what the marathon protocol is, not just work harder, because like so many entrepreneurs you and I work with, like, it's just work harder. It's like, that's great, kind of, but like just like if hammer's the only tool you have, like it's going to be tough to change out the electrical panel. You know what I mean? Like we might need some more tools, right? So it's breaking it down.
Sometimes I just know the hammer as well. Yeah. And sometimes it's not going to help. It's going to damage the electrical panel when you go in there and try to tweak things.
Exactly. Yeah.
So it sounds like because of your past experience, breaking down emotional walls for people is probably something you're pretty good at. How do you get people to let their guard down so you can really get in there and start doing your thing?
Man, that's a good question. How do I do that? I think probably I believe one of my couple of our core beliefs is, one, I believe that like everybody I get to work with, I truly believe that they could go do it on their own. Right. So I don't look at my clients like you're broken, you're screwed up, like you desperately need me. Right? I'm like, you're a phenomenal person. You could figure this out on your own. But like by us working together, we're just going to get you there faster. You know what I mean? And less beat up. So I think part of it is like just have like I'm not talking down to my clients. And the other one is like I believe that coaching is a code dance. It's like we got to do this together. Right. Like I'm going to be transparent with you. You got to be transparent with me. Like this has got to be a co-creation. And so I think part of it is like my vulnerability, but I think people can tell if why you're in it, you know what I mean? And like what you're really after. Our guts are really, really good. You know what I mean? Like you can tell if I'm just here to BS you or if like really give a rip about what's going on in your life. And that too, like truly, like you and I encounter a lot of people that I think they're more willing to open up than we maybe give themselves credit for. Like, but they seldom have the opportunity, right? They're the leader. They're the CEO. They're the person that's always supposed to have the answers. They're the one pouring out. So I think a lot of times they don't have the opportunity where somebody goes like, what's up with you? Right? Like, how are you? What's not working? What are you pretending not to know? Like, where we at, right? So I think a lot of it's just even having that space is powerful in and of itself.
I don't want to get political with you, but sometimes I wonder. I've been through probably some pretty stressful things in my day, like I've had the state of Nevada try to shut down my towing company.
Oh my gosh.
I've fought major lawsuits. I've done some pretty heavy stuff. I know that I've got really strong shoulders. And when I look out there and I see guys like Donald Trump, and I'm like, man, how the hell does that guy do it? I mean, like, who does he talk to when besides his wife, like, when he needs that boost? When you see somebody going through, and I don't care what side of the equation that you're on, whether you hate him or whether you love him, it's obvious to anybody that he's getting freaking hammered.
Absolutely.
And so what would you say to a guy like that?
So here's one of the things that I did after my rock bottom moment was I wrote a book called The Art of Getting Back Up. And a couple of things I talked about in that book are like how to prepare, like tough times are coming. Like, how do you prepare yourself for that? Because I know like you're going to have another tough day. And I think a lot of times what happens is, especially as entrepreneurs, like we have a tough day, we just power through it. And then we it's almost like we hallucinate that another tough day is not coming. So one of the things that I think is really important to people is like, build your first aid kit, have a spare tire in the car, because like something, and I know it sounds like a terrible motivational speaker, but like bad things are coming, right? Like, they're like, what are you talking about? Like, no, like there's another really bad day headed your way. Like we should probably be somewhat prepared for it. So like, I joke around about like, what's your break in case of fire thing, right? Like break glass in case of fire. Like, what is that, right? Yeah. And I think so much of it, what I realized is I've got to do a better job building things before I need them. Right. So when I look at that, I look at like, there's a couple of different things. Like one is like genetics, right? So meaning like, am I taking care of myself in a way, or am I setting myself up for failure? Like, have you ever had that moment where like you get a parking ticket and you start crying and you're like, what is wrong with me? It's like $8. Like, why? But you feel like the world's falling apart, right? It's like you were so close to the edge, dude, that like an $8 parking ticket like sent you over, right? So it's like, stop being so close to the edge. Right. So like with our clients, like they're not sleeping, they're not eating good, they're doing all these terrible things. It's like you're setting yourself up to make the bad day 100 times worse. Right. And then the other thing we look at is like how to, all the different strategies, sustain gratitude, to do those kinds of things. And then I think a big one is like your group, like who are your people? And you gotta build those friendships, those connections, that group before you need them in essence. And I think that's just one of the pieces of it. But it's like going, if I was going to build a bulletproof plan for somebody, what would I put in there, right? What are the things that I would add there so that you can withstand that really tough day when it comes along? You got the people, you got the group, you got the routines, you got that toolkit to reach into, I think is really, really important. But as high achievers, we just kind of push through it and we hallucinate that we're not going to have another bad day. And we really set ourselves up for a kick in the teeth, I think. Yeah,
big time with a horse. The horse.
Yeah. Kicking. Yeah. Amen. Yes.
Gums collapsed and all. I recently watched a show on Netflix the other day, and I honestly had a tough time watching it. It was a show called The Pacific, and it was about these guys who battled in World War II. And kind of during that whole D-Day thing, they came in. And they were on this island, Guatemala. I forget what it's called, but I don't want to screw it up too bad. But it's an island in the South Pacific, and these guys, young men, went into battle, and the Japanese are coming at them, and they're just killing. And you see all these people turning into animals, right? Like these guys, taking out Japanese men's teeth for the gold. And then and one guy says something in the movie, in the show. It's really well done. He says, man, I'm afraid. I'm afraid out here. And he goes, if you ain't afraid, you're dead. Like, because everybody was scared. And like, if we look at things in perspective, like you're talking about, like, we really have a comfortable life these days. And like, if you look at the people before us, the people from World War II, they had a tough thing going. They didn't have ropes when they were hanging off buildings and cleaning mirrors. They didn't have, they didn't have all conveniences of ordering Uber Eats or DoorDash and stuff like that. So do you think that the reason, obviously you said this is timeless. Do you think that the reason that people are suffering more these days is that we're just not tough enough? or is it a combination of things?
Man, I think that I think most of suffering is and Tony Robbins talks about how suffering is when life falls below your expectations, right? We're in pain when life is less than we expect it to be. We have joy usually when life meets or is better than what we expect it to be. So from that perception, I think that a lot of times when you work with people, it's, let me frame it a little bit differently. I ask people, what would it take for this to be the best year of your life? And a lot of times people have a hard time giving me that answer. But if I really dig deep, it's like a year where I don't have a lot of problems or financial problems, or the family gets along really good or whatever it is, right? They start giving these things. And it's like, well, that's impossible. Like, you're going to have problems this year, right? So, but we hallucinate that the best year of my life would have to be almost a problem-free year. And it's like, well, that's going to work out, right? Like you're screwed, right? Yeah. So I think for a lot of it is going back and setting kind of better expectations and the stories that we tell ourselves, how we interpret those. It's like, you go to a third world country and this kid's got a soccer ball that looks like it's been bombed, right? And he's the happiest kid in the streets. He's got this old raggedy soccer ball, right? You come to a kid down the street here, you give him a brand new whatever, and he's like, oh, I wanted it in blue, right? And he's totally pissed off, right? And you're like, what is happening, right? But I think that's how we are, right? Like our perspective is so off. So it's like we ask ourselves the question, like, hard compared to what? Somebody goes, man, it's such a hard day. I had to make 5 calls. And it's like, okay, like maybe, like, but like, is that like what's actually a hard day, right? Like a hard day is like what you described, like being dropped off at the beach and being shot at. Like that's a bad day. You know what I mean? Right. So I think a lot of it is our perspective. But I think the other thing is what I realize, especially in my case, is we're so ill-equipped. Most people are just ill-equipped. They don't have the right questions to ask themselves. They don't have I'm having a bad day. What do I do? Right? Like you're like, what's your recovery strategy? I talk about that all the time. And most people's recovery, like everybody has a recovery strategy. Most people just have really crappy ones. It's like the person has to yell at 20 people, then they feel better. It's like, it's not great. Or the person has to, drink for a whole weekend or overeat or sleep for 3 days, whatever it is. Like they're just not great. So it's like, I think we're ill-equipped. Like we don't have the right questions. We haven't figured out, okay, when I have a bad day, what do I actually do? Right. With this situation, how do I actually process that? We haven't reflected on man, we haven't done tough stuff to be proud of doing tough stuff, So I think there's the myriad of things, but I think it really starts with like how do I better equip myself? And if I was going to give somebody else the tools to thrive through this, what would those tools look like, and begin to build those?
Are you interested in investing in real estate, but you don't feel like you got the time to take a coaching program? I get it, right? You're busy, you're making money, and that's okay, but you want to invest with me because you're like, Troy, I like what you do. I see what you're doing. You're a real deal. Yes, I am. I'm an average Joe. I worked at Burger King. I worked at Red Robin. I started investing in real estate, and I started from absolutely nothing. And I will take you along with my journey, and you can get all the benefits, but you got to be an accredited investor. If you want to invest with me and you want to be a part of something great and you don't have the time, guess what? We're launching a fund that you can be a part of, but you got to be an accredited investor. And if you want to find out more about what that looks like, all you got to do is click the link and we'll show you exactly what that looks like. And guess what? If you're not an accredited investor, then you may down the road be an accredited investor. So definitely learn what that's all about and enjoy the podcast, and we'll see you on the next one. You mentioned Tony Robbins. I happen to have gone to 2 of his events in the past, one in 2007 in San Jose, which was the one where you walk on fire. I forget what that was. Yeah.
Yeah. Unleash the power within. Yeah.
Unleash the power within. And by the way, for the record, I burned my feet. So that's...
there you go.
I don't care how many times you yell "cool moss" when you're walking.
It's hot.
You're going to burn your feet. Tony Robbins, you go to these events and you're like, you're watching this guy. He's freaking, jamming it up there. He's got his signature clap, and he just fires you up. And then you listen to him, and really, what I look at is I'm like, that's not sustainable, right? Like that, it's not sustainable to drink just all of my stuff in greens, to sleep on a magnetic pillow, to do all of these crazy things. So, but there's a lot of good, right? There's a lot of positivity that comes from that.
Yeah.
So how do you balance what is like perfection, which because a lot of these guys, like you see Gary Brecka, they talk about like, hey man, just don't eat anything that like comes out of this way. I mean, we are creatures of like convenience and habit. And how do you balance getting what you need versus trying to achieve the unachievable? Like, you know what I mean? Like where you can't be Tony Robbins. You can't be Gary Brecka. It's really not possible. You can't be David freaking Goggins.
Right.
But you could be the best version of yourself. Right.
Yeah. Well, and I think you just answered right there. I think it's, for me, let me say it this way. Maybe this will help. Just help me a lot. I struggled with wanting to be in one or two places. There's either like this place of like complacency was like, I'm content, I'm happy where I am, everything's good, be in gratitude, whatever it is. But like it felt like complacency to me, right? And then there's this other side of me that feels better, which is like go, like you're never enough, go, right? Fight for it, right? It's never enough. You didn't ever do enough, like work harder, right? All this stuff, right? And like, but neither one of those felt really good to me. It was like, this is giving up. This is like beating myself up all the time. Like neither one of those felt good. So if I had to create for me like this third place, which is hard for me to put into words, but it's like, I'm so grateful for what I have right now, and I'm thrilled about where I'm going. Right, I'm grateful for today, and I can't wait for tomorrow to be a little bit better than I was today. Right, so for me, it's like I'm thrilled for where I am, and I'm so excited about where I'm going. I want to go. I'd be pissed off if I wasn't a little bit better tomorrow than I was today. Right, so it's like it's an elevated thing where it's like I'm loving myself, and I'm also not letting myself like off the hook at the same time. But I've created a more beautiful experience for me to go through, and a big part of for me that was. And I still struggle with this, like comparing myself to other people. Like we are comparing machines. And yet for me, especially, that comparison is the greatest thief of joy. And it's so easy for me to go into comparison mode where I'm going, well, this guy started his coaching company 8 hours ago and he's got 800 clients and he's flying a jet. You know what I mean? Right? Like he's been doing it 8 minutes, right? And like whatever, right? And he has a six pack and blah, 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 right? You know what I mean? And I'm going, what the hell? Right? So
money.
Right, yeah.
Yeah. And a million things. Everything. Great head of hair.
Yes.
Great good. Yes. Everything. Yeah. Straight teeth, white. The hell.
100%. Right. And yet, here's what's funny. My kid said this to me. One of my kids said this to me a couple of years ago, and he goes, he looked over, we were talking with him, he goes, Dad, there's always going to be somebody doing better than you.
Yeah.
And I was like, thank you, I think. Like, I'm not sure, like, I think, right. But it struck me because it's like, I just got to run my own race. And I know that sounds kind of cliche, but really it's very true. Like, it's okay to look at your rear view mirror or side view mirror for once in a while to kind of get inspiration from somebody else. Like, man, this guy's got a great this, and man, I can learn something from this person. But if I'm staring at those mirrors, I'm going to crash. So for me, it's like use them as inspiration. But I got to protect myself from over comparison because it wrecks me. And I just got to go, I'm doing my thing, and I want to be the best version of me. So whatever that looks like, and then giving yourself time to do that. And I think most people, what happens is, we're so unrealistic about how fast we can do things. It's like, give yourself a second, right? Do one, right? It's like, most people try to do 30 habits at once instead of like add one habit a month.
Yeah.
And I think it's like, figure out what that pace is. And then I go back to the best friend thing, like give yourself the advice you would give your best friend.
Right. Yeah. That's excellent information, Wayne. One thing that just jumped in my head from what you said about the comparing yourself to other people that I really like it because everybody's seen the movie and, but I don't know if everybody's, sometimes you don't hear what they say in these lines and, Rocky, he's fighting Mr. T or he's fighting Apollo Creed, he's fighting whoever. And his trainer says to him, he's like, he's just another man. And what I chalk that up is that we all are insecure human beings.
Yeah.
There's no killers out there who are just psychopaths. Everybody's got insecurities. Everybody's got fears. Everybody's got everything. I wanted to follow that up with a question because you talk to thousands of people that you coach and you help, Wayne. What do you believe that the strongest emotion or motivation that gets someone I guess just in period, what is the strongest emotion that you believe people have?
Man, I think that there's a couple depending on how you look at them. I think for a lot of guys, shame is one of the things that we resist more than anything. If we can avoid feeling shame, man, and that's why we end up arguing with our spouses. It's why we end up, making bad decisions and not breaking down. Like, I think shame is huge for men. I think they want to avoid shame. But then I think for emotions, I think that pain is a greater driver than pleasure, right? So the desire to avoid pain is much greater than the desire to gain pleasure, and figuring out how can I use what I know motivates me for me instead of it being used against me.
Right.
I think is a big way to look at that. I
agree with you. How do you think fear and hate stack up?
Man, I think huge. I think that man, especially when you think about those, I think turned internally are even more detrimental, right? So when I'm fearing that I'm not enough, or I'm fearing that I'm not gonna make it, or I'm afraid that I don't have what it takes, and then I think self-hatred is probably where it really keys in.
Yeah. Another follow-up question. I asked a guy the other day, one of my friends who's got an unbelievable amount of self-confidence, somebody who brings out the best in me. And, somebody who I enjoy every time I hang around with them. I want to be better. I like people like that, the people that want to make me better. And I asked him, he's a very religious person. And I said, can I ask you a question? Where does all of your confidence come from? I said, does it come from faith? Does it come from your belief in God? And he said 1,000%. And so my question to you is, do you find that there's, I know you coach a lot of different people. Do you find that the people who rely on religion and faith have a better, existence?
I think that the people that believe there's something bigger than themselves have a better existence. Whatever that is, there's lots of different ways to look at it. But I think that the people that believe that, I think there's a humility that comes along with that, and a faith and a certainty that comes along with it. Right? I think there's those two pieces, right? And then I think it's the people that know that they're walking in accordance with whatever that is. Right. So like they know, like, hey, God's got my back because I'm also doing my best. Right. Like he's had my back in the past. There's these things have happened. Right. Like, so I think there's an element of that to it. And yet when you talk about confidence, I think one of the biggest misnomers is, especially around confidence, is that it's something we can pick up by reading a bunch of books, or have the right bumper stickers or whatever it is. And I think for most people, confidence is I did the hard thing.
Right.
And then I did the other hard thing. And you earn it over time. I think most people are kind of sitting in a corner waiting for confidence to show up. Right. And it's I think in a lot of ways you earn it, right? By doing that little hard thing, by doing that little hard thing over time. And yet kind of go back to the faith thing, living in alignment with your beliefs is a big deal. Because if you're out of alignment, it's going to be real tough.
Yeah. You got to get an adjustment from Wayne.
Yeah. So and like I said, back to your friend, how, I guess a question for you would be how do you find that person and how do you maintain that friendship?
Right. Yeah. Well, I always think with me is, you always try to provide value. If you have a friendship and you're a taker, and it's going to show up, man. If every time you're talking to somebody, it's always about me versus how can I listen? How can I hear what that person's saying? How can I be a friend to them? What is a friend? Like you said, your best friend. What is a friend? A friend is not somebody who's judging and being opinionated. It's somebody who's offering help and advice and insight and friendship and being complimentary and sincere. Yeah. So for me, I just try to continue to be the best version of myself and make that person feel special, right? Because I always said one thing that I've always taken away is, lady asked me one day, I was getting on a line to go to a flight. And I would say I'm a pretty confident person in a lot of ways, and some I'm not. But when it comes to getting my way, I tend to be pretty confident. And so I'm a sales guy. And so I said, it's an American Airlines flight, and I knew that I could probably get in first class, And so I had gotten it previously without having to do anything. And so I said, I'm going to talk my way into that one too. And she said, well, what do you think? You're special? This was a different lady. And I said, I said, yes, I am. And I said, and I said, don't you want to be treated special? Because I think that everybody wants to be treated special. And and so my answer to your question is I try to treat people special. Like I try to recognize their talents and give them praise for what they have done, because we're all little kids inside. We all want to be like, man, you did a good freaking job, Troy. Way to go.
Yeah.
You know? And so that's my answer on that. And just try to be a consistent friend to anybody that I meet, and, be sincere. But I did have a question. So with people who are struggling right now that are like, maybe they're not living their best self, or maybe they think they're living their best self. I know you coach mainly like high achievers and stuff. For the people who aren't high achievers, that they want to become high achievers, what, and they're struggling, maybe they're like, oh man, why did I go to college? Or, why didn't I go to college? What do you say to these guys to kind of give them some self-esteem boosting?
So, I mean, I think it's several things. One is, there's that whole like fake it till you make it. And I don't really believe in fake it till you make it, but I do believe in like pull some of the energy of the past into the present. So what are some of the things you've done in the past? It's like I go to the mom, and I'm like, man, if you can raise kids, like we can figure this real estate stuff out, right? You know what I mean? Like you can survive, you can teach kindergarten for 3 years, like we can deal with adults, like we're good to go, right? So someone's going into the past. I think the other thing is a hope in the future. And back to Robbins, he said something one time, and I'm not going to say it perfect, but he basically said, there's no such thing as lazy people. There's just people that don't have a compelling future. And I think there's some truth in that, right? Like when somebody truly feels like the future can't be better than today, like that, like we're that's a hard place to live. So the other thing is helping them get like, what could a better future look like? What if we did this for 6 months? What could it look like a year from now? What could it look like? So I want to have a future that pulls them in, that's pulling them instead of trying to shove them down the road, right? I think that's a big part. And then I wrote down the other day, like if you really want to screw your life up, here's the things you can do. Because on the other side of that is the positive. But I think for right now, I'll give you a couple of them. One is like staying in resistance or resentment. I think that really is messing people up right now. They're resisting, whether it's interest rates or government policy or whatever it is. Like they're resisting and resenting instead of just here's the cards that I have, right? Here's what I got to go do, right? Like when the state came after you, right? Like here's what I can't control. Here's what I can control. And instead of resisting and resenting, it's like, cool. What can I do? I think the second thing that is huge for people right now is if you really want to screw your life up in the next several months, it's avoid tough conversations. Right. And I think we're having tough conversations on level, like with our our buyers and sellers in a sense. We're having tough conversations with our team members, but the real tough conversations are with ourselves, right? Like, what am I pretending not to know? What am I avoiding? What do I know? Like, most people, we're afraid to be alone with ourselves for 10 minutes. You know what I mean? Actually turn the radio off, turn the music off, right? Just sit and think, right? Yeah. So avoid tough conversations. And I think a lot of people are living in like confusion and shoulds. I should, instead of choosing one or two, like, okay, of all the things, like here's the one or two I wills, right? And I think that's a big piece of it.
How do you see yourself growing this business in terms of like, obviously it's an internal thing from what I'm gathering for you. It's something that you obviously enjoy doing. And that's why you've helped so many people be successful with this, because you're very passionate about it. It's your why, right? Like,
yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And so how do you see this thing growing? How do you see the legend of Wayne kind of playing out?
Man, interesting question. I don't know if I've thought about it quite that way. I think that what lights me up, or let me start off. First off, what pisses me off more than anything, help me identify what I really want to do, right? So what pisses me off more than anything is people not seeing their own greatness, right? So, and I'm sure you encounter this all the time, right? You look at somebody like, dude, you're phenomenal. They're like, maybe you're like, no, like, holy cow, right? Like you see something in them that they don't necessarily see themselves. Like what ticks me off is when people don't see that. Or don't know how to tap into it. So that led me into kind of my why, which is like help people see their own greatness, but then also give them like the tools to tap into it, right? Like, so like I can see it and I've got the tools to actually go into it. So yeah, for me, like we talk about the legacy, whatever it is. First off, I want to be a dude that my kids are proud of. I want to be something that I'm proud of myself. And the ripple effect is what excites me. I want to be able to help a million people that then take that and parlay it out to $1 billion. And that ripple effect, is what I'm after.
How do people get a hold of you?
Man, on the anywhere on the internet. So Wayne Salmans or theheronation.com, either one of those. And it's Wayne Salmans on all the things, or just the Hero Nation.
And I didn't ask you earlier, where are you at right now? What's
in Dallas, Texas is where I reside these days, which has been hot for about 6 months in a row. So I don't recommend it at the moment.
How long have you lived in Dallas?
So I've been here for about 10 years. I was in Alaska before that, and in Canada before that, but I've been in Dallas for about 10 years. Yeah.
Are you from the United States?
I was born in Dodge City, Kansas, which is probably not too far from where you are. So I literally got out of Dodge. So yeah.
Well, that's cool.
And haven't looked back. No.
Yeah. I don't know. I haven't even been to. So I'm originally from Seattle. I moved to Vegas 15 years ago, and then I just moved to Kansas City 2 years ago.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, I got my Dodge was Seattle.
Yeah,
I got the hell out of Dodge up there.
Yeah, no, we were in Seattle last week, and there's so many things I used to love about Seattle, and I like visiting every once in a while, but I don't know if I want to move back full time right now. That's for sure.
Yeah, well, I can tell you, it's not the same place I grew up for sure.
No, 100%.
Yeah, it's completely different. So you're in Dallas, Texas right now. Is most of your stuff done online?
Most of it's done online. We do some events throughout the year. So a lot of our coaching is done online, and we do group coaching, one-on-one coaching. And then, man, I'm having a lot of fun doing like smaller, more high intensity events. So like we're doing like teaching people how to become great speakers, and we'll bring 30, 40 people in, spend 2 days, like really helping them. Here's how you become a great teacher. Here's how you own the stage. And doing another event actually in a couple weeks, teaching people how to be a great coach. You want to start a coaching company, you want to be a great coach, or you want to join us as a coach, like. And so it's a smaller events with like, but 10, 20 people, intense 2-3 days kind of things. I'm really enjoying those a lot more than some of the big events that we do from time to time.
All right. So selfishly, I've got a mastermind coming up, and one of my friends, he's going to be presenting there. I'm going to be presenting, and he's like, "Yo, man, I'm gonna kill it." He goes, "I got it figured out. I know how to win the audience." And I was like, "What do you mean?" He's like, "I'm telling you, I've won every belt." And he's in another mastermind group. He's like, nice. I've got it figured out. And I was like asking him, "Well, what do you do?" So my question to you is, what makes someone a great speaker?
Well, now I want to know what he does. I mean, if he's won all the belts, I mean, now you got to get him on the podcast so we can all learn how he's doing it.
Well, he's been on before. We've never talked about that, but
I love it. Well, we got to get him back. Now I have to know. Here's I think what makes a great speaker. I think we could probably write 3 books on it. I think it's a couple things, and it obviously depends on the environment and everything else. Yet I think it's got to be true to who you are, right? Like we all have been in rooms where like somebody's talking, and you're like, this just isn't, like, it doesn't resonate. Like, so I think it's got to be true to who, like, they've got to believe, they've got to own it. And then like, I think you got to put the work in. And I think sometimes we underestimate like the art and the science of being a great speaker, and actually doing the work. Like I remember years ago, one of my mentors, Dave Jenks, said like, this is rocket science. And it's like, people are treating it like it's not. Like, it is. Like, treat it with respect. Like, get great at this craft and treat it like a skill if you want to be phenomenal. So I think most people think, like, I love what I'm doing. I really care about people. I'm charismatic. Like, I should be a speaker. It's like, that's a piece. But like, there's a lot, like, respect the craft, respect the art. Like, just like doing a podcast, right? Like, there's an art to asking questions and leading and doing, like, there's an art to it. So like, learn the skills and don't wing it.
Yeah, that's true. I need to practice up on my speaking for sure and get better at it. It's something, obviously, I don't think anybody's a natural speaker. There are some people who seek the attention a little bit more. For me, I don't. That's great advice. Man, I appreciate you coming on the podcast. I appreciate you sharing your story. Any last words of wisdoms for anybody out there listening?
Man, I would say this. First off, nobody's coming to save you, right? So like you better lean in. But I think right now, a couple of truths that really resonate. One is, this probably isn't going to be the easiest year of your life.
Right.
And yet when we look back, what are we really proud of? Like you talk to, somebody who's been through a lot and you ask them, what are they proud of? They tell you like the tough stuff, the time the company came after them, the state came after them, but the time that everybody left on a Tuesday, right? Whatever. So like, it's not going to be easiest, but it could be the best. It could be you're really proud of. Second off is like, you do get to create the experience, right? Like what's the story you're telling yourself that's creating the experience that you're living? And if you don't like the experience, like go back and check it with the story. And then the third thing is like, you didn't come this far to just come this far. Like we've all been through some stuff in the last couple of years. You know what I mean? And like, just ask yourself, like, what do I really want to be proud of at the end of this year? At the end of next year, what do I really want to be proud of? Get some clarity on that, and then lean the hell in.
Man, you could have ended on a better note. That's great advice, Wayne. I truly appreciate you coming on, sharing your story. That's the most important thing. Is I think there's a lot of people who might be in that spot today. I know every time I share about alcoholism, somebody comes up to me afterwards and is like, man, I'm struggling. And I know that you probably have the same thing. So I really appreciate you coming on and being vulnerable, sharing your story, sharing about Hero Nation. I think you got a great message. I think people, if they're struggling, they should reach out to you. I mean, I think that like everybody needs someone to help them out when they need help. And the fact,
absolutely.
Yeah. So I think that's great, man. I really just want to say thanks enough, guys. If you're listening to this podcast right now, make sure you give Wayne a follow. Make sure you give this a 5-star review. And make sure if anybody's struggling, have them listen to it. Your message is positive. Your message is sincere. And as you said, that's part of the presentation, right? The messenger who believes in their message, and you clearly do. So I really appreciate you coming on, man.
Well, thank you for having me on. Thanks for what you do. It's obviously making a big impact.
All right, man. We'll check in the next one. Peace.
Okay, on November 10th and 11th in Kansas City, Missouri, we are hosting our mastermind event, which is where you're going to learn how to wholesale, flip, buy and hold, BRRRR, every single real estate strategy under the sun, happening November 10th and 11th in Kansas City, Missouri, right downtown in the building that I bought, using the methods that we will teach you, and you will have everything that you need to get started investing in real estate. We're going to have attorneys there to set up your asset protection trusts, LLCs. We're going to have sales and marketing funnel experts to help you set up your sales and marketing funnels. We're going to have a tax consultant to make sure that you can eliminate your taxes. And then we're going to have all of the experts, all people who have retired from their 9-to-5, who are going to speak on you, how they become multimillionaires through investing in real estate. And they're going to teach you the strategies that they use and do every day so that you can become financially free by investing in real estate. That's November 10th and 11th in Kansas City, Missouri. Go to millionairementorshipmastermind.com. Buy your ticket today.